Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, we're very glad to be here, and it's a wonderful topic, the road to greatness, resilient entrepreneurs. And I see a large number of entrepreneurs, both young and in the middle ages, and that is what we are going to be talking about. So when I came here, the first and foremost thing that we did was I said, okay, let me get into the definition of entrepreneur. And when I was looking at the Wikipedia, and the Wikipedia said the definition of an entrepreneur is entrepreneurship is a process of designing, launching, and running of new businesses, which often initially may be small businesses, but thereafter they grow into giant empires as well. And when I was looking at list of some of those entrepreneurs, the big 11 entrepreneurs that I was looking in the world, right from Steve Jobs, because these are the people who started there as a small entrepreneur and then came up to that type of level. And these are the type of young people that you are seeing out here. The young people that I'm having along with me are the future Steve Jobs that you will be seeing in the times to come. And that is what we will be debating them today. So for me, when I look at human beings, the human beings are basically victims of curiosity. And they are always desiring to experiment and to come up with some new things in life. And that is why most of them and all of them are looking in a very, very positive way. But then, when they're trying to bring about those type of positive changes, it's not that very easy in the type of environment or in the type of the society that we are living. So they are the ones who have got to go through some of these environmental, social, and one of the major things which I see is in terms of data, as to how you're able to get that type of the data. Because only an entrepreneur knows that once he is able to succumb as far as the environmental and societal problems are concerned, how, with the help of the data, he is able to convert it into knowledge and convert it into actions. I can only say that during my vast journey of 35 to 40 years which I had in the government and in the corporate world, some of the best entrepreneurs that I have seen were the people who were only 3 class or 4 class pass. And some of them, like one of the examples which I always give, like when I had gone to Ladakh, one of the biggest problems that we are facing in Ladakh was it was a cold desert ecosystem, and we were not able to get anything grown there, because by the time the winters used to thaw, the sowing season used to be over. So we in the government and other things tried a lot as to how we could solve this particular problem, and we could not do it. There was one person by the name of Nordam, and this person, Nordam, is the one in Leh and Ladakh, a junior engineer, who basically brought the concept of zincs, and he brought the concept of artificial glaciers. And when we say zincs, what he did, in mountains, he created these huge lakes where the water was coming from various sources, and in mountains, he made these lakes where the water used to get accumulated during the winter, and it used to thaw. And then he also made some artificial glaciers. So when the summer season used to come and before the ice used to melt, this was the first water which used to melt, and he was able to provide this water for the agriculture down below, and that is how he changed the complete ecosystem of Leh. If you don't call this particular person an entrepreneur, then who's an entrepreneur? And similarly, while in the ministry, when we were making the national environment policy, so we went to various places, and when we went to Kerala, we found that there was a huge problem of drought. And we were thinking as to how to get over this drought and what are the various measures that can be taken. The complete solution was given by a person who was only 2nd class pass, and he was the person who had developed Surangam. And what he had done during the monsoons, he had taken this water and he had harvested inside the rocks, kept it there, and when there was drought all around, no vegetation, this person was the only one who had greenery all around and was able to take care of those drought conditions also. So in my journey in various continents, other places, some of these type of people, those whom I met, wonderful set of people who have been able to bring about these type of changes, and they have been those type of entrepreneurs as well. But then, when we look at these entrepreneurs at this level, like when you go to Egypt and you look at pyramids, You say, how could such a complex situation like this pyramid also could be created where 1,100,000 people were there at one place at one time, and all of them, it's so difficult in our office to manage 5 to 10 people. I don't know how they were able to manage these 100,000 people, get them together, co-create and build those type of pyramids that we see today. And similarly, when I think of an entrepreneur, I also think in terms of NASA. That in NASA, in 1969, if they were able to send the person to the moon, how 100,000 people came together and worked together, co-created, and they were able to land a person in the moon. But then, it has got its own set of problems, it has got its own set of challenges, and that is what we will be talking to you about, as to what are those type of challenges, what are the type of challenges that we have. So the first and foremost to Jatin is, could you just give me a little bit background of the type of work that you do? And also I want to know, what are the type of challenges that you face initially? Because as far as I know, any startup that you do, 8 out of 10 are bound to fail, because that is the statistics that I was reading. So what were those type of things which made you successful? What were the challenges that you faced, and how did you overcome them?
See, business is all about challenges, and challenges, every morning you have a different challenge. Definitely when you work, I very strongly feel we were the ones who took the initiative in this business when I started work in 2003. So 2003 onwards, since when you take the leadership further and when you are the one who starts a new business or a new line or open up a new line, so there are a lot of challenges because no one else has ever done this business. So again, heat सबसे ज़्यादा उसको होती है जो सबसे आगे दौड़ रहा होता है. So he faces the maximum heat, and challenges what we faced maximum have been the taxation situation which is there in our country. Essentially used car was never treated as an industry. So now at least with the GST getting sorted out for us, even the government has realized that this is an industry which is almost equivalent to a new car industry. So if there are 100,000 new cars sold all across the country, there are 100,000 used cars also sold all across the country. So taxation essentially was the biggest challenge when we started business. So that was primarily one of the reasons I had to move my entire setup out of Delhi to Haryana, because the tax structure during the VAT generation in the year 2002, 3, 4, 5 was not very favorable. So taxation was, yes, one of the situations, but now since we are in the business for 15 years, have done a lot of work towards getting the taxation straight, now things are much better. So that was one of the biggest challenge which we had, sir.
And when I moved to Amit Ramani, he's the founder and CEO of Office. And when I was talking to him, he's one of those persons who has been able to create affordable, technically enabled, collaborative, high-energy co-working environment for the entrepreneurial community. And he's the one who has been able to create inspirational workplace solutions. So now, when you're moving from one city to another, you don't have to look for offices. And what I was talking to him, you just have got to take his card, and in 1,000 rupees for 5 days, in any of the stations that he's got for 8 hours, you can go to any of his workstations with all the facilities provided there. You can transact your business. You can do any type of work that you want to do, and you do not require to have permanent offices. Because that's the type of a niche and the space that he has created. So I think he's going to talk more about it. So for me, Amit, we'd like you to tell something about your enterprise. How did you go about it? And what was it that made you, that there is this sort of need which is arising in this particular segment? How you were able to gauge that type of need, and how you went to fulfill that type of need? And what are those challenges that you face initially of the step that you have come today?
So, sir, the opportunity got created with, the real estate developers not moving in terms of innovation over the last, I would say, 70 years in this country, right? There was a trust deficit every time you deal with a developer, barring DLF and similar guys, but a lot of the challenges with trust deficit, right? Second, anybody who's built an office space knows that it's one of the hardest things to deal with a contractor, and then finally to maintain it. People have understood that that's not exactly what their business is all about. It's about creating their business opportunities and not managing real estate. The second part, which I think most developers in the country did not watch out for, was that in the last 10 years, the SME sector is the fastest growing sector in the country. There are 128 million people in the SME sector today. It used to be half of that over 10 years back, right? And the third piece is that the corporations figured out that in 2003 to 2008, it was great badge of honor to have your own facility. Today, the real estate head in most organizations are the punching bags, right? They used to be the rock stars 10 years ago. So what we figured out was that the demand was shifting into the SME sector. Corporate guys wanted to convert their capital investment to an operating investment. And we anticipated 3 years ago that the SME and the corporate businesses will be our largest occupiers of our space. So we run a shared workspace business in India. Proud to say that in 70 years of independence, there's not a single real estate developer who's mapped all 9 cities in India, 7 metros. We do that today. We have 20,000 seats, 51 micro markets is what we operate in. So clearly, we've solved a need for the market where people wanted flexibility. They wanted us 1 seat to 200 seats. They wanted it from an hour to whatever time they chose. People didn't want to pay security deposits. They didn't want lock-in periods, etc. So all the inefficiencies of the real estate development market is what we've solved for. And that's why we, in the last 1 year, have grown 700% in terms of our seat count. We've gone in terms of our occupancy of our people. Today, we have a community of close to about 15,000 people that work in our spaces, etc., etc. So I think we have solved a need, and that's why there's a business has been created.
Amit, I'd also like to know, because there are a large number of people out here who would like to get into to be an entrepreneur. So when you were getting into this type of the segment, or you went into this type of a business, so how did you went about looking after the capex and also looking after the opex, and how do you manage both these two things also? And how did you look into the financial part of it, and how you were able to take care of that part?
So before this venture, we still operate a business called Nelson, which was in the real estate development space, essentially fitting out spaces for large corporations. So global and local multinationals. We also ran a business which was in the facility management space. So we understood the real estate space really well, and especially the corporate real estate space. In terms of how we approach the business, fortunately I had Mr. Rana Kapoor, who's the founder of Yes Bank, as the original investor. So there was a lot of focus on the financials being in place, right? So from day one, a lot of focus was on making sure that the business made money at a center level. Obviously, when you're growing fast at the pace that we were growing, it was obviously you will not make money at the company level because it's a high capital intensive business. But at the same time, what we also figured out was that if we could partner with the landlords, where the landlord is taking equal risk with us, which means that they are putting in the capital in many cases, then our risk gets de-risked. If they're not charging us a rental, a committed rental or a security deposit, that reduces my risk. So from that perspective, there's been a very strong focus on de-risking the business and making sure that at the financial level, we are returning essentially a decent amount of returns for both our partners as well as our shareholders.
Well, great. So we also have got now with us Rohit Manglik, another young entrepreneur, and he's the one who's the head of Edu, the CEO of Edu Gorilla. Because first I asked him why that name Edu Gorilla and why that gorilla word came. So I think I will not like to explain. He himself will explain as to why he decided to name his company as Edu Gorilla, because he's the one who's into one-stop solutions to career needs of students of all ages. And he's the one who, for me, he's a one-stop shop, like you've got 99 acres, and where you can now put your information anywhere that you want to put your property. Now you want to go to any institution, want to do any course, anything, he's the one who's got to be contacted. He's the site that has to go, and he's like one of those, I think, Uber and one of those type of 99 acres, the site that is created. I think he's going to be talking more about it. So what I would like to know, Rohit, from you, if you could just explain a little bit about this particular model that you've got, how you went about it, what are the challenges that you faced, and why the name Edu Gorilla?
Yeah, so I will just start with my background and how I started this whole journey. I will give you a small story over here. So I started back in 2015. So I had one of the best job in the country. I was into investment banking, and I had 7 screens in front of me. It was like too jazzy and everything. I was working in D-Show, by the way, at that point of time. So one day I had to visit my school for a guest lecture. So my principal invited me, come and talk to your juniors and talk to them. Just talk, a casual talk. And over there, I realized that the students over there do not get privilege as what we get, right? So for example, I'm from NIT Suvatkal. I have network with most of the prominent people in the country. So if I want to get in touch with someone through one or the other person, I'm able to, right? But my juniors were not able to. They don't have the exposure. So that problem struck me at that point of time. I went back to my job. And after that, I analyzed the whole ecosystem, education ecosystem, as you call it. So in that case, what I figured out was, even though there are multiple players who are trying to solve the same problem, they're trying to onboard all the players in the ecosystem under one umbrella, but they fail to do so. Because it's a data-intensive work, right? We have 15,80,000 schools in the country, which is the largest belt of schools in the whole world. We have 39,000 colleges, 900 plus universities. We have 13 lakh plus books in the subcontinent. Still, we don't have access to all that information. The approach is not holistic. It's not transparent for the students. So to bridge that gap, we have started writing artificial intelligence and machine learning-based algorithms. We started collecting the data in the runtime, so the data should be updated by the users, and we should be able to enrich the data of each and every user who comes to our portal. So that's how the Gorilla name came in. So Gorilla shows power. It shows the transparency. It shows the authenticity for the whole process, right? So Gorilla is a symbol of that. So to get it, just the way if you feed Gorilla, it becomes big, and it's really big, right, in size. It's a beast. So that's what we needed in the sector. That's how we got Edu Gorilla.
One of the things when you are doing any type of this entrepreneurial work, one of the biggest problems that one faces out here in India is also, one is the government and other type of regulations that one you said about the customs and other part of it. It's also about how do you basically have how do you create a creative and a collaborative work environment, and you are able to get all the people also together. So for me, what are the type of challenges that you face in getting those right type of people? Because one of the entrepreneurs I read was Andrew Carnegie. And when I was reading a story about Andrew Carnegie, he says, getting the right people is like digging digging to the earth for getting gold. And when you dig gold, there's a lot of earth comes out. But then you are not looking at the gold, and you keep getting deeper and deeper, because that is the way you will be able to look for the real type of a gold. And for you to do any of these type of entrepreneur, you need to have the right type of collaborators. You got to have the right type of people, and the people with the right type of expertise who are able to help you, are able to guide you, take those type of decisions, and those have that type of a courage and the conviction. How did you were able to get those type of people, and how you were able to find them and inculcate that type of spirit in them?
You would not believe that we've probably done negotiations with getting our key people on board. The negotiations have lasted probably 3 years, 4 years in a row. And probably the highest we've done is our CEO, who's on board on Big Boy Toys. My negotiations with him started in 2009-10. And he finally came on board in 2013. So you can imagine the kind of effort we've put in. And at the end of the day, an organization is all about the people. People who share a similar kind of vision and who understand your vision, how to take the organization further. So definitely, it is definitely a very, very challenging job. And let me give you a very small example pertaining to this question. When I started work in 2003, I started going to the office. So I wanted to hire a peon. Yeah. So a peon who can probably serve us coffee and tea. So at that point of time, a salary of a peon was 6,500 rupees. And when I was interviewing the peon myself, because it was a 3-4 people team in 2003, when I was interviewing him, so he was like, भाई साहब आपके यहाँ यार छोटी सी कंपनी है, 6,500 आप मुझे दे रहे हैं, 6,500 साथ वाली कंपनी दे रही है जो आपके पड़ोस में, और वो कंपनी बड़ी है तो मैं वहीं जाऊँगा, आपके पास क्यों आऊँगा? So from that day to this day, I still remember that argument which he had, and then it gave me more motivation. तो यार ठीक है, हमने भी अपनी कंपनी बड़ी करनी है, so that at least प्यून हायर करना तो आसान हो जाए. So that's where we've started from. Yeah, giving you the answer, sir.
Similarly, as he brought about, I just wanted to, I want to know from you, Amit, how also you have been, with the type of people that you have been able to work with, how you have been able to make it aspirational, and how you have been able to look after some of these issues that I was talking about.
So I think, one of the things that we look for, and I think clearly at the leadership level when I hire, is the question that, would I work for this person? Right? And if that's the answer that one is able to get over, then I think that is the first step. Second, what we were very careful about was that we didn't want to hire people from the industry at the leadership level. Because what that does is that they bring with so much baggage that if you hired those people who came from business center or similar backgrounds, they will bring those baggages there, and we would never be able to be a high growth business. Because the earlier businesses in the country, for 15 years, they grew only to about 10,000 seats, which was our largest competitor when we started. So clearly, we hired from parallel industries, great experience, but parallel industries. And the third, how do you create the right atmosphere? I think if you are transparent, if you give people the opportunity, show them the vision, but then get them the freedom to basically experiment and fail and obviously learn from it and move forward, I think it's just a platform that people want to be part of. And if you get really smart people together on the bus, I think they find their seats on their own. And I think so that's where these are a few things that we've done to build the organization. We grew, in the last 2 years, we have close to about 250 people today. So obviously we have grown very fast. We've made mistakes, but we have corrected those mistakes and moved forward very quickly.
Coming to Rohit, because somewhere I had read that any of the organizations that you go to, you might get the best of people, but you will see 90% of the people doing 10% of the work and 10% doing 90% of the work. And that is also, it happens, and that is where at times you find the companies also moving in that type of direction. So what was your type of experience, and how did you get those type of right people and challenges that you faced?
Hiring right sorts of people is always the challenge for any organization, and that's the most crucial part that we have, right? So I have found some of the key employees in Adigoila in the most unforeseen ways. So probably for my best designer, I actually went to a printing shop, and over there I saw one designer who was printing really fast, right? So I asked him, "Bhai, kaam karoge mere?" So things happen in that way, right? So some of the interns in Adigoila who worked with us at a very early stage, I had never let them go. So they are working. So those who have joined us from beginning, and they are still working with us. So I make sure those people stay with the venture. And people don't stay for money. People stay for the culture. People stay for the values. People stay for the motivation. People stay for the growth, right? So if they have part of the company, and if they feel that they are the company, right, they will stay with us. So money was never a motivation for any of the people that I hire. When I hire, as Amit has said, the first thing that I ask is, do I really want to work with this guy, right? So probably he might or might not be capable enough to work at the designation with that knowledge or skill set. But if I give him the sufficient exposure in a span of next 2 to 3 months, will he be capable enough to do it? So these are some of the points that I keep in mind before I make any decision.